New study shows 10% of adults in the world are LGBTQ+. A global survey conducted by Ipsos found that the number of adults who identify as LGBTQ+ is now 9%. From February 7th to March 13th, Ipsos surveyed over 22,000 adults across 30 countries, including Portugal, the Netherlands, Turkey, and Brazil. Brazil had the highest percentage of LGBTQ+ adults around the world, 15%, which does not surprise me at all. And followed by that, Peru and Japan had the lowest at 4% of adults surveyed. On average, of 3% identified themselves as gay or lesbian, 4% as bisexual, 1% as asexual, and 1% as pansexual or omnisexual. Gen Z respondents were 2 times more likely to identify as LGBTQ+ than their millennial counterparts, and 4 times more likely when compared with Gen Xers and Boomers. The United States matches the world average with 9% of the population identifying as LGBTQ+. This represents a 1-point percentage drop since 2021, according to the survey. When it comes to the gender identity, 1% of the surveyed adults describe themselves as transgendered. Another 1% identified as non-binary, genderfluid, or gender non-conforming, and 1% identified as other than male or female. In this area too, Gen Zers were more likely to identify as one of these categories than older adults. I mean, this story is awesome and it doesn't surprise me at all. I think that, I'm a big... I love quantum physics and, the whole quantum theory.
I've never heard anybody say that out loud.
I do. I love it. I live for it. Okay.
That's his new hashtag.
Really, yes.
I used to watch Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yes.
Same thing.
Okay. We're playing in the same realm. But in the quantum realm, there's this whole, thing about that everything's on a curve. Everything is on based on, you have the 2 extremes and you have everything in between. And I do feel like sexuality and gender expression and all that is all in the middle. Like we're everything, everywhere, all at once when it comes to that, and how it expresses in us is I think that there's a correlation between how accepting society is to how you are expressing yourself. Because the more accepting society becomes, the more you feel free to express who you truly are, who you are always going to be, and if you're in a space that is welcoming and affirming and you can see trans representation at Target, that makes you more willing to say, oh, you know what? I'm trans, or I'm gay, or I'm a lesbian, or I'm anything in between of that. Right. And that is okay.
I'm going to shine bright.
I'm going to shine bright and make sure that others know. Yeah.
Yeah. But this 10% is high, though. And, I really truly believe in my heart of hearts that it's way higher than that is.
Yes.
Of course, we've got a lot of people that just because of their livelihood or for other reasons, they can't be out and proud like we are. That's why we're out for those people, right? So I really do believe that percentage is way higher, right? And I loved exactly how excited you got when it was Brazil. You're like, yeah, I think that number is way higher there, But that spectrum that you speak about, Pastor Harold, is true. Like everyone's in the middle somewhere. It's kind of like it's like you could be fluid, you could be pansexual, you could just love whatever it is, and there's like this certain gauge that you fall under. But it's impossible to really put yourself in a box.
Right.
You know?
I agree with both of you. However, the number of the people that they interviewed, 22,000, I'm like, out of the world? Like that's
I know. Out of 8 billion
that's a
people?
random number, 22,500.
That is a good sample.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was a little astounded. I'm like, okay, that seems very small to me.
For the world.
For the world.
They were all in Temecula.
Yeah.
They were all,
or Orlando. Temecula and Orlando.
If you've ever heard that ratio, like 1 in 10, like if you've ever heard, that actually came from a misreading of the Kinsey reports, like in 1948 when they did the
misreading.
A misreading. Because like the whole argument of the, like they did a study on male sexual behavior that was published in 1948, and then 5 years later on women's was published in 1953. And the Kinsey reports by Alfred Kinsey, who himself was queer, it was, the argument about it was that it's on a spectrum. Like that was the argument, that it exists in a spectrum. So to identify it is almost impossible because it fluctuates and it depends on a number of different things, and it's a construct depending on the time of history or circumstance or all these things, right? But to kind of look at this number, it sounds like 1 in 10. So like,
let's see, the 1 in 10, the 1 in 10 was big when I came out 30 years ago. It was 1 in 10. So I just feel sad that it's not 2 of 10 now. Like that's my.
It is.
I'm more prayerful that people are more comfortable with who they are, like you were saying, Pastor, to be their authentic self.
Right.
Right. But I think it's being able to verbalize it, and to vocalize it, and to own it.
For sure.
You know, I'm going to make an argument, bold statement. I'm going to make an argument.
I would be disappointed if you didn't.
In 2023, this may be the most important single moment for LGBT, this survey, and the others that are going to prove that this is accurate. And the reason is first, the reason you can't come to the conclusion beyond what generally over the last 2 or 3 decades we have done is because it has to do with sex. If it was going to have something to do with your eye color or your race based on skin, we would have absolutely no problem coming to the factual conclusion on it. We can't do that here and get acceptance because it is about sex. We don't want to know what the conclusion is. And the reason is because those people that establish how we think about sex, certainly in Puritan America, is based on those that are in power, which are principally older white men, and Christian evangelicals who are white. And so they shame sex to the point where we're not going to find out this. And the reason is they don't want to find out this. This is why they manage it. Head in the sand. Because they know it's already true. But if this widely gets accepted, it has the effect of how people vote, of what people run, and how power and money is accepted in society. To that proof of that observation, there's a couple of things that I think are super important in this study. When I first read it, I read it very extensively. Brazil, 15%, Peru and Japan, 4%, absolutely not. That indicates that the study survey is incorrect. It didn't change because the people were humans in Brazil or people in Peru. Japan is facing very difficult LGBT civil rights. That's why marriage is so issue oriented. Peru versus other places in South America. I'm going to Colombia. You're going to Costa Rica. The response numbers in Costa Rica and Colombia are far higher than they are in Peru. The numbers are fluctuating based on those who are in power and are policies. Christian religions that are holding it down because it is sex. That's why it varies. Another example of why this is so important, we make the joke, okay, boomer. The study finds that out. Gen Zers are twice as likely to identify as boomers. Why? My sexuality as a boomer is no different than Max Fenning's as a Gen Zer, except the power and the Christian evangelical holding me down, and Max Fenning going, I don't give a fuck what you think.
It's conditioning.
It's completely societal pressure, and that's how and why the numbers are moving. And by the way, all of the surveys are showing that Gen Z identification as LGBT is moved to 20%.
Ooh, which is why we have so much bad legislation coming after us, because they know. They know what's happening.
Exactly what is coming. One final note of statistics that are important here. Wait, the numbers are down 1% from 2021. People all of a sudden, poof, you're no longer a homosexual or a bisexual or a pansexual. Poof, what happened? What happened was the older white men and the evangelicals pounding their fists in places like Florida and Missouri and Montana. And as a result, I don't feel as free to say I am this.
You're retracting.
I'm retracting.
Correct.
And the numbers go down. That's what's going on with this.
I don't want to be cynical too, and I'm not going to just throw... I feel like, let me end on a cynical note. I also get very nervous when people start counting us. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, in history, that doesn't end well usually.
And like,
so I also
you end up with a pink triangle on your arm.
I was just going to say that. You just took the words out of my mouth. Yep, we're all going to be marked and what do they call that when they brand you? Branded.
We're the same everywhere. It's just a question of, are we free enough to be able to say it? And will people hear and listen to it? And will the church stop controlling this? And will white older men, okay, boomer,
straight men,
stop trying to manage us?
And the reality is that when you eliminate shame, if we were to one day, really fight and eliminate that shame, we are more than just any of those little numbers can say.
Yeah.
Because the shame, and that's where the sex comes from. There's a lot of shame around sex, and that is a transgenerational thing that continues to affect everybody. Yep. And I'm happy that millennials and Gen Zers are slowly pushing us away from that. Yeah.
They're doing better than my generation.
Oh yeah,
is what's happening. Yeah. We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show from Happening Out Television Network. In the model of PBS and NPR, we educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of the LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the stories going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.